He was just a hungry, homeless boy, feeding a dying, old woman on the street. But what he didn't know was that this fragile stranger was the mother of a billionaire, and his single act of kindness was about to change his life forever. Let's continue this story. The rain had been falling for 3 straight days, turning the city's sidewalks into rivers of mud and trash. People hurried past, clutching umbrellas and coffee cups, pretending not to see the boy sitting under the bridge. His name was Malik, and at 15, he had already learned what it meant to be invisible. Wrapped in a torn hoodie and holding a soggy cardboard sign that said, "We'll work for food," he watched cars pass by like ghosts, each one filled with warmth he could only imagine. He hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. A half-eaten sandwich from a garbage bin had been his dinner. His stomach growled, but he didn't move. Moving meant energy, and energy was something he couldn't waste. He just sat there, watching the world, waiting for something, anything, to change. That's when he saw her. She was lying on the sidewalk across the street, half hidden behind a pile of cardboard boxes. At first, Malik thought she was just another homeless person like him. But then he noticed her clothes. Old but elegant, the kind rich women wore in old movies. Her silver hair was tangled, her skin pale, and her hand trembled as she tried to lift a small paper cup toward her lips. The cup was empty. Malik hesitated. He had nothing, no money, no food, not even dry clothes. But something in the way her eyes fluttered open, confused and desperate, hit him like a punch to the chest. He looked down at the only thing he had left, a crumpled brown paper bag containing half a muffin someone had thrown away earlier. It wasn't much, but it was something. He crossed the street, stepping carefully around puddles. The old woman didn't even notice him at first. Her breathing was shallow, her lips cracked from thirst. Malik knelt beside her. "Ma'am," he said softly. "You okay?" Her eyes opened just a sliver, gray, cloudy, filled with exhaustion. She looked at him like she couldn't tell if he was real or just a dream. "Cold," she whispered. "So cold." Malik swallowed hard. He unzipped his hoodie and gently draped it over her shoulders. The rain had soaked it through, but at least it was something. "Here," he said. "Eat this, please." He broke the muffin in half, handing her the bigger piece. She stared at it for a long moment, as if she'd forgotten what food even was. Then, slowly, she took a bite. Tears welled in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "What's your name, son?" "Malik," he said quietly. "You need a doctor or something? I can go find someone." "No," she said quickly, shaking her head weakly. "Please, just stay a little." So he stayed. The rain softened into a drizzle, and the city lights flickered against the puddles. Malik sat beside her, not saying much, just keeping her company. She told him her name was Eleanor, and that she used to live in a big house near the edge of the city. Her voice trembled as she spoke, every word coming out like it hurt. She said she'd lost everything: her husband, her health, and her home. Her son, she hadn't seen him in years. Malik didn't ask why. He just listened. When she started coughing, he helped her sit up. When her hands shook, he held the cup for her. For the first time in months, he felt useful, like maybe his life still meant something. As the night grew colder, Malik looked around for somewhere safer to take her. There was an abandoned bus stop nearby. At least it had a roof. "Come on," he said gently. "We can't stay here. You'll freeze." It took nearly 20 minutes to help her up. Her legs were weak, her breath short, but Malik didn't let go. He half carried her to the bus stop, using his own jacket as a blanket. He sat beside her, humming softly to keep her awake. He remembered a lullaby his mother used to sing when he was small, before she died. The sound of it filled the silence between them, fragile but warm. "Your mother must have been a good woman," Eleanor said faintly, her eyes fluttering. "She was," Malik replied. "She always said kindness is the only thing poor people can afford to give." Eleanor smiled, a weak, trembling smile. She was right. An hour later, she fell asleep. Malik stayed awake, watching the rain, keeping an eye on her breathing. Something about her didn't feel like the others on the streets. Her hands, though frail, had the kind of softness that came from years of comfort. Her accent carried grace, like someone who once gave orders instead of begging for mercy. But he didn't care who she used to be. Right now, she was just a person who needed help. By morning, the rain had stopped, and a faint light filled the gray sky. Malik stretched his stiff legs and looked at Eleanor. She was awake, staring at him with eyes that seemed both grateful and haunted. You should go, she whispered. Find food. You can't waste your time on me. He smiled. You're not a waste of time. Her lips trembled. No one said that to me in years. He shrugged. Then they're dumb. Eleanor chuckled weakly. You remind me of someone, she said. Someone I lost. Malik didn't ask who. He just sat beside her until a loud noise made them both turn. A black car was parked at the corner of the street, engine humming. The window rolled down slightly, and a man's voice called, Mrs. Eleanor? Eleanor's eyes widened. Panic and disbelief crossed her face. No, it can't be. Malik looked between her and the car. The man stepped out, tall, wearing a suit that screamed money. His face froze when he saw the frail old woman sitting beside Malik. Mother, he whispered. For a long moment, no one spoke. The city noise faded. The horns, the rain, the footsteps, and it was as if time itself held its breath. The man in the suit stood frozen in disbelief, his expensive shoes splashing in the puddle as he took a hesitant step forward. Mother, he repeated, softer this time, almost afraid of the answer. Eleanor's lips quivered. She blinked as if she couldn't trust her eyes. Michael. Malik glanced between them, unsure what was happening. The air around them seemed to thicken with something heavy. Shock, guilt, love, pain, all at once. The man's jaw trembled as he knelt in front of her, rain dripping from his hair. Mom, it's me, he said, voice breaking. It's Michael. I've been looking for you for weeks. Eleanor's thin hand reached up to touch his face. For a second, it was like she was touching a ghost. You came. I should have come sooner, he whispered. I should have never let you out of my sight. Malik stood awkwardly to the side, unsure if he should leave. But when Eleanor's hand began to slip, he quickly steadied her shoulder. Michael looked up at him then, his sharp eyes taking in Malik's torn clothes, his bare hands, his soaked shoes. Who are you? Michael asked, not with anger, but confusion. Malik hesitated. Just someone who helped her. Eleanor looked at Malik and smiled faintly. He's the reason I'm alive right now, she said. He shared his food. He stayed with me. Michael swallowed hard. You helped my mother? Malik nodded. Yeah, she was hungry. I didn't know who she was. Michael looked like he didn't know what to say. He stood up, pulling out his phone. Within minutes, 2 black SUVs arrived. A driver and a woman in a nurse's uniform rushed out, wrapping Eleanor in a thick blanket and guiding her gently into the car. Malik stepped back, watching it all from a distance. He wasn't used to this world, the polished cars, the smell of leather, the quiet authority that came with money. He suddenly felt out of place, small, like he was intruding on something private. But just as he turned to leave, he heard Eleanor's voice call out. Malik. He stopped. She reached out a trembling hand toward him. Come with us, please. I want you safe. He shook his head quickly. No, ma'am. You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad you're okay. But before he could walk away, Michael placed a hand on his shoulder. You're coming, he said firmly. You saved my mother. That means you're coming. Malik opened his mouth to protest, but the man's tone left no room for argument. Moments later, he found himself sitting in the back seat of a luxury SUV beside Eleanor. The car smelled like new leather and expensive cologne. He'd never been inside something like this before. His reflection in the tinted glass looked out of place, dirty, tired, but alive. Eleanor reached out, her wrinkled hand resting gently on his. You have a kind heart, Malik. The world doesn't see boys like you, but I do. Malik swallowed, unsure how to respond. I just did what anyone would do. No, she said softly. Not everyone would. They drove for nearly an hour, leaving behind the crowded streets and the smell of rain. When they finally stopped, Malik couldn't believe what he saw. A massive white mansion standing on a hill, surrounded by gardens that looked like something out of a movie. He'd only seen places like this on TV, and even then, they didn't seem real. The staff came running as the car stopped. Doctors, nurses, housekeepers, they all greeted Michael and rushed to help Eleanor. Malik stepped out quietly, unsure where to stand. He didn't belong here, that much was clear. The marble driveway gleamed under the lights, and his shoes left muddy footprints on it. Wait here, Michael said, helping his mother inside. Malik did as he was told, standing under the porch, shivering slightly. He half expected them to forget about him, to send him back to the streets once they were safe inside. And honestly, he wouldn't blame them. But 10 minutes later, Michael returned. He had changed out of his wet suit, now wearing a simple gray sweater. In his hand was a towel and a steaming cup of hot chocolate. "Here," he said, handing it to Malik. Malik hesitated before taking it. The warmth hit his fingers like fire. "Thank you," he muttered. Michael studied him quietly. "How long have you been on the streets?" Malik shrugged. "Couple of months. Since my mom passed." Michael nodded slowly, eyes softening. "And your father?" "Don't know him," Malik said simply. "Never did." There was silence for a while. Then Michael said, "You know, when I was your age, I wasn't much different. My father left us. My mom raised me alone, working 2 jobs. Everything I have now, it started with her." His voice cracked slightly. "And I almost lost her." Malik didn't know what to say, but he could feel the pain behind the man's words. "Come inside," Michael said finally. "You can't stay out here." Malik followed him reluctantly. The mansion's interior glowed with soft light. Paintings, chandeliers, marble floors. Every step he took echoed. Servants passed by, glancing at him with surprise, but no one said anything. Michael led him to a guest room bigger than any place Malik had ever seen. There was a soft bed, clean clothes folded on the chair, and a warm shower waiting. "Stay here tonight," Michael said. "We'll talk in the morning." Malik looked around, unsure what to do with all of it. "Are you sure?" Michael nodded. "You saved my mother's life. You deserve at least one night of peace." As Michael turned to leave, Malik whispered, "Is she going to be okay?" Michael paused, his back to the boy. "I hope so," he said quietly. That night, Malik lay on the soft bed staring at the ceiling. The sheets smelled like lavender and safety. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this warm. But even as exhaustion pulled him toward sleep, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed in ways he couldn't yet understand. And somewhere down the hall, Eleanor lay in her bed surrounded by doctors, whispering Malik's name in her dreams. Morning sunlight crept through the tall windows, spilling gold across the marble floors. Malik woke slowly, confused at first by the softness under him. For a few seconds, he didn't know where he was. Then it all came rushing back. The rain, the old woman, the car, the mansion. He sat up, blinking at the clean room around him. A folded note sat on the nightstand. In neat handwriting, it read, "Good morning, Malik. Breakfast is in the dining room. Don't be shy. Eat as much as you like." Michael. The words made him smile a little. He got up and stared at the mirror. His reflection startled him. His face was still thin, but clean now. The dirt from the streets had been washed away, replaced by something new, a faint spark of life. He slipped on the fresh clothes laid out for him, soft and warm, then stepped into the hallway. The mansion was enormous. The corridors stretched endlessly, walls lined with portraits and vases worth more than anything he'd ever owned. He followed the smell of pancakes and coffee until he reached the dining room. Michael sat at the long table, dressed casually in a gray shirt, scrolling through his tablet. When he looked up and saw Malik, his face softened into a smile. "Morning, champ. Sit down. You must be starving." Malik hesitated, then sat. The food looked unreal: eggs, toast, fruit, even fresh orange juice. He picked up a fork carefully, as if afraid to break something. "Go on," Michael said gently. "It's not a museum." Malik laughed nervously and started to eat. For a while, there was only the quiet sound of forks on plates. Then Michael spoke. "My mother's stable," he said. "Doctors say she's weak, but improving. She asked about you first thing this morning." Malik looked up, surprised. "She did?" Michael nodded. "She says you stayed with her all night. You gave her your food, your jacket. That's something most people wouldn't do, especially not for a stranger." Malik shrugged. "I didn't think about it. She looked like she needed help." Michael leaned back in his chair, studying him. "You know, I built my whole life on the idea that helping people is for charity galas and tax write-offs. But you," he shook his head, "you reminded me what real kindness looks like." Malik didn't know what to say, so he just kept eating quietly. After breakfast, Michael took him to see Eleanor. She was propped up in bed, wrapped in a pale blue blanket, looking stronger. When she saw Malik, her eyes brightened. "There you are," she said softly. "My hero." Malik flushed. "I'm no hero, ma'am. Just glad you're better." Eleanor patted the side of her bed. "Come sit. Tell me about yourself." He sat, shyly at first. "Not much to tell. My mom worked at a diner. She passed away last year. After that, I kinda drifted." "Where did you live?" she asked. "Anywhere," Malik said with a small shrug. "Shelters, under bridges, wherever I could." I kept thinking I'd find work, but people don't like giving jobs to kids who don't have an address." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. She reached for his hand. "No child should ever have to live like that." He tried to smile. "It's okay. I got used to it." Michael stood near the doorway, watching them. Something in his chest tightened. Guilt, maybe, or awe. His mother had always said compassion was the true measure of wealth. He'd spent years chasing numbers, building companies, buying houses, but this boy, with nothing, had done more for her than he had. Over the next few days, Malik stayed in the mansion as Eleanor recovered. The doctors came and went. The staff began to warm up to him. The cook always made sure to sneak extra muffins onto his plate. The gardener taught him how to prune the roses. For the first time in a long while, Malik felt like he belonged somewhere. One afternoon, he found Eleanor sitting by the window, looking out at the garden. "It's beautiful here," he said, sitting beside her. "It used to be my favorite place," she said, "before everything changed." "What happened?" Malik asked gently. Eleanor took a deep breath. "My husband was a kind man, but he loved business more than family. When he died, he left everything to Michael. My son took the company and built an empire out of it. But in the process, he lost himself. I tried to tell him that money isn't life, people are. We fought. He stopped visiting. Eventually, I left." Malik frowned. "You left all this?" "Yes," she said quietly. "I needed him to see that no amount of money could fill the emptiness of a lonely heart. But time slipped away, and I got sick. By the time I wanted to come back, I couldn't." She turned to him, her gray eyes glistening. "And then you found me." Malik's chest ached. "You were meant to be found," he said softly. Eleanor smiled. "You remind me of Michael when he was young, full of dreams, full of kindness." At that moment, Michael walked in, hearing the last part. He stood there for a long second, looking at the two people who had somehow filled the voids in each other's lives. Later that night, when the house was quiet, Michael sat alone in his study. Old photographs were scattered across the desk, pictures of him as a child, standing beside his smiling mother. He pressed his fingers against one photo, whispering to himself, "I failed you, Mom." A knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Malik, holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. "I thought maybe you could use one," Malik said shyly. Michael chuckled, wiping his eyes quickly. "You read my mind." They sat together by the fireplace, the silence comfortable. After a moment, Malik asked, "Can I tell you something?" "Of course. When I found your mom, I didn't know who she was. But I felt like she mattered. Like if I walked away, I'd never forgive myself." Michael looked at the boy, a lump forming in his throat. "You followed your heart. That's more than most grown men do." Malik stared into the fire. "Sometimes I wish someone had followed their heart for me." Michael turned to him slowly. "Maybe someone finally did." Malik looked up, confused. "You found my mother," Michael said quietly. "But maybe you were meant to find me too." Days turned into weeks, and the mansion slowly became a place of laughter again. Eleanor's health improved. Her cheeks regained color, and her smile, once faint and weary, became steady and alive. Malik had brought a strange kind of light into their lives, something money had never been able to buy. Every morning, he'd help the gardener, wash cars, or read aloud to Eleanor from her favorite old books. The staff adored him. Even Michael, who once walked through life with a permanent tension in his shoulders, began to relax. The mansion felt like a home again. One evening, after dinner, Michael called Malik into his office. The boy walked in nervously, glancing at the tall shelves lined with awards and photographs. Michael motioned for him to sit. "Malik," he began, "I've been thinking about something. You've been here almost a month now. You've worked hard, helped my mother, treated everyone with respect. I don't want you to go back to the streets." Malik looked down. "You've already done too much for me, sir. I can't keep depending on you." Michael leaned forward. "You're not depending on me. You've earned this. I want to help you go back to school. Get an education. A future." Malik blinked. "School? Yes. Private school, tutors, whatever you need. You're smart, Malik. You deserve a chance." Malik's eyes stung. "Why are you doing this for me?" Michael hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Because when I look at you, I see the boy I used to be before I lost my way." There was a long pause before Malik whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Michael." "Call me Mike," he said. "And you're welcome." That night, Eleanor called Malik to her room. She sat propped up by pillows, knitting something soft and gray. When he entered, She smiled warmly. You and my son talked, didn't you? He nodded. He said he wants to help me go to school. She chuckled softly. That sounds like him. Always trying to fix things with action. But tell me honestly, Malik, what do you want? Malik hesitated. I just want to belong somewhere. I want to stop running. Her eyes softened. Then maybe you already have. She handed him the scarf she'd been knitting. This is for you. My hands aren't as steady as they used to be, but I wanted to make something that might remind you that kindness comes back around. Malik smiled as he took it, touched more deeply than words could show. Thank you, Miss Eleanor. She shook her head playfully. Call me Grandma Ellie. I think I've earned it. He laughed. Okay, Grandma Ellie. As the days went by, something about Malik's presence began to stir memories in Eleanor's mind. Faces, voices, pieces of the past she had buried long ago. One afternoon, while Malik helped her organize old photo albums, she froze. Her eyes landed on a picture, a young woman with a kind face, standing beside a diner sign. The woman looked familiar. Where did you get this? Malik asked, picking up the photo. That's from a charity dinner years ago, Eleanor said slowly. We donated to rebuild that diner after a fire. The woman's name was, she squinted, then gasped softly. Angela. Yes, Angela Rivers. Malik's breath caught. Angela Rivers? That's my mom's name. Eleanor's hands trembled as she took the photo. Your mother? He nodded, eyes wide. She worked at a diner her whole life. She died last year. But she always told me once, when I was little, that a rich lady had helped her after her restaurant burned down. She said she'd never forget her kindness. Eleanor's lip quivered. Oh dear God, that was me. They both sat in stunned silence. I remember her, Eleanor whispered. She was strong, proud, and refused to take extra money. She said, someone helped me once when I had nothing. I'll pay it forward. Malik's throat tightened. She used to say that to me all the time. Tears filled Eleanor's eyes. Malik, you didn't just save a stranger. You saved the woman who once helped your mother. At that moment, Michael appeared in the doorway, overhearing the last part. What did you say? Eleanor turned, her voice trembling. Michael, his mother was Angela Rivers, the woman from the diner. Michael's eyes widened in disbelief. That's impossible. It's true, Eleanor said. I helped her rebuild after that fire 20 years ago. Michael stared at Malik. His heart pounded. I remember that. You were just a baby. Mom talked about her for weeks afterward. Said she was one of the few people who reminded her what grace looked like. Malik's voice broke. So all this time, we were connected? Eleanor smiled through her tears. Yes, my dear. Life has a strange way of bringing good souls back together. For a long moment, the room was silent except for the ticking clock. Michael walked over and placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. I don't believe in coincidences, he said softly. You finding my mother, it wasn't random. Maybe it was meant to happen. Malik swallowed hard. My mom used to tell me that everything we give comes back to us, one way or another. Eleanor nodded. She was right. Her kindness saved me once. And now her son has saved me again. Tears slipped down Malik's cheeks. I wish she could see this. Eleanor squeezed his hand. She can, sweetheart. I'm sure she can. That night, as Malik stood in the garden, he looked up at the stars, thinking of his mother. The wind carried the faint scent of roses and rain. He whispered softly, I found them, Mom. I finally found my place. Behind him, Michael stepped outside, hands in his pockets. You know, he said, I think she'd be proud of you. Malik smiled faintly. I hope so. Michael looked at the boy for a moment, then said, How would you feel about staying here permanently? Not as a guest, as family. Malik turned slowly. Family. Michael nodded. You've already earned that place in my mother's heart. I'd be honored if you'd let me be your guardian. Malik's vision blurred with tears. You mean live here? With you? Yes, Michael said with a small smile. This house has felt empty for too long. Maybe it's time to fill it with something real again. Malik didn't know how to respond. He just stepped forward and hugged him tightly. Michael froze for a second, then returned the hug, closing his eyes. In that quiet moment, beneath the starlit sky, it felt like two lost souls had finally found home. Months passed, and with them, the cold memories of Malik's old life slowly began to fade. The mansion was no longer a place that intimidated him. It was home. Every corner now held warmth and laughter. Every morning began with Eleanor humming softly as Malik helped her with breakfast, and every evening ended with Michael and Malik playing chess or watching movies together. The boy who once slept under bridges now had a room filled with books, posters, and sunlight. The walls that once heard only silence now echoed with life again. Eleanor often said, "God sends people when we need them most, not when we expect them." And Malik had come into their lives like that. Unexpected, unplanned, yet exactly when their hearts needed healing. Michael kept his word. He enrolled Malik in one of the best schools in the city. The first day was tough. Students stared at him, curious about the quiet boy with secondhand shoes and a shy smile. But Malik worked hard, harder than anyone else. He stayed up late reading, catching up on the years he'd missed. One afternoon, his teacher asked the class to write an essay titled "The Kindness That Changed My Life." Malik stared at the paper for a long time, then smiled faintly and began to write. He wrote about a dying woman in the rain, about how feeding her had changed everything. But he didn't write her name. He just called her the stranger who became my family. When the essays were read aloud, his classmates sat in silence, many with tears in their eyes. Even the teacher had to look away for a moment. Malik's story spread across the school like wildfire. But when reporters came asking for interviews, Malik simply said, "It's not about me. It's about remembering that one small act of kindness can save more than one life." Back at the mansion, Eleanor grew stronger each day, though her steps had slowed a little. She loved watching Malik study by the window, whispering prayers under her breath. Angela would be proud, she often said. One evening, as the three of them sat in the garden, the air golden with sunset, Eleanor reached for Malik's hand. "Promise me something, my dear," she said. "Anything," Malik replied. "When I'm gone someday, and the world feels heavy again, promise me you'll keep helping others. Promise me you'll never forget what your mother taught you." Malik nodded, eyes glistening. "I promise." Michael smiled at them both, his voice soft. "And I'll make sure you always have the means to do that." Time went on, as it always does. 2 years later, Malik stood on a stage in a crisp blue uniform, holding his high school diploma. The crowd cheered, and in the front row sat Michael and Eleanor, beaming with pride. When Malik looked down at them, his heart swelled. He'd made it, not just out of poverty, but into a life built on love. After the ceremony, reporters gathered again, eager to hear the story of the homeless boy who'd become the adopted son of a billionaire. But Malik only said one sentence before walking away. "Kindness saved me, so I'll spend the rest of my life passing it on." Years passed. Malik went on to college, then started a small foundation called Angela's Table, a nonprofit that provided food and shelter for the homeless. He made sure every meal was served with warmth, dignity, and hope, the very things he'd once been given when he had nothing. Michael supported him fully, investing in the foundation, helping it grow across multiple cities. Eleanor, though older now, would visit occasionally, always saying, "This is what your mother dreamed of, Malik." One winter evening, the sky painted in shades of violet and gold, Malik stood outside one of the shelters bearing his mother's name. He was 21 now, tall, confident, and carrying the same spark of compassion he had as a boy. A group of volunteers stood beside him, serving food to a long line of people who had nowhere else to go. Among them was a little girl, no older than 8, holding her younger brother's hand. She looked scared, hungry, lost. Malik knelt down, handing her a plate of hot food. "Here you go," he said gently. She looked up with big brown eyes. "Thank you, mister." He smiled softly. "You're welcome. What's your name?" "Lila," she said. "Nice to meet you, Lila," he replied. "You don't have to be scared anymore. You're safe here." As she walked away, Malik felt something deep inside him shift, that same feeling he'd had years ago when he found Eleanor on the sidewalk. A quiet, powerful certainty that kindness always comes full circle. Later that night, as he locked up the shelter, his phone buzzed. It was a video call from Eleanor and Michael. They were sitting by the fireplace back at the mansion, smiling proudly. "We saw the news," Eleanor said. "Angela's Table served its 10,000th meal today." Malik laughed softly. "Yeah, feels unreal." Michael nodded. "You've done something incredible, Malik. You didn't just change your life, you changed ours." Eleanor added gently. "Do you see now, my dear? Every act of love you give becomes a seed. And look at the garden you've grown." Malik's throat tightened. "I couldn't have done any of it without you too." Eleanor smiled, eyes twinkling. "Oh, but you could have. Because the heart that gives is already rich." That night, After the call ended, Malik stood alone on the balcony of the shelter, staring up at the stars. The cold air brushed against his skin, but inside, he felt warm. He thought of his mother, of the rainy night that started it all, and of the woman who'd become his family. He whispered softly, "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for teaching me to give." A breeze passed by, light as a sigh, as if the universe itself was answering him. Years later, when people would tell his story on television, they called it the boy who fed an angel. But Malik always said the truth was simpler. He wasn't the hero. He was just a boy who listened to his heart, and in doing so, found a family, a future, and a purpose. And every night, before closing his eyes, he remembered one simple truth, one meal, one act, one moment of kindness. That's all it takes to change the world. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories like this. Because the next story might just touch your soul.